Hi, welcome back to Zack of All Trades. I'm Zack, and today part 2 of making an airplane tug out of an old Jazzy power chair. I want to start by pretty much breaking this thing down just to see what I'm dealing with, to see, what I have to work with. Cool. Here's the brain box. There's the batteries. Well, right back here. Wow. Well, I think this is about as far as I want to break this thing down. With all the covers and stuff off of it, I can get a pretty good view of what's going on here, what I've got to work with. There's some good things and some bad things. The bad being that I had visions of having a little slot up the middle of this thing where the tail wheel was going to go, or nose wheel, depending on whatever airplane. But this post right here is absolutely welded in. The brain box right here could come out easy enough, but the positive thing about all this thing is built like an absolute tank. You can take off the motors and the wheels from what it appears, and the wheelie bars, or the anti-wheelie bars, whatever you want to call them. But the rest of this thing, I mean, this post right here is bolted, not even bolted, it's welded to the very bowels of this thing. So the good news is, if you ever find yourself in use of a Jazzy power chair, holy cow, man. Well built. Good job, Jazzy. Now we can formulate a plan. Alright, some figuring has taken place here. Don't pay any attention to the chicken outside. She's just making more chicken seeds. Anyway, some figuring has occurred here, and I've come up with two different plans. One that I like more than the other one, but they're both kind of options. This one is going to be an option if this one doesn't work. So I'll talk about this one first. The idea here being that there is a lever somewhere attached here around the post that goes and lifts up here on the tail wheel. The drawback of that being that when the chair moves, when the cart moves to the left, when it turns, it's going to be swinging the whole back of the airplane every time that it turns. Additionally, you got the whole lever thing in play, which obviously this is not to scale, but looks kind of big and ungainly. So this might be an option. I think it should also be considered that if we were to pivot it right there in that post, it would mitigate the fact of the swinging to the left and to the right whenever the cart chair, we're going to have to call this something, that would prevent the tail wheel from swinging. That's my second option. My favorite option is this one, where we somehow get the tail wheel up on top of the cart and put the tail wheel pivot right above the pivot of the axles, so that whenever the cart turns, the tail wheel stays in place and the tail wheel itself just pivots. I think that would make it a lot more maneuverable. Another benefit to this one is that if we put the weight of the tail on top of the drive wheels, that's going to increase our traction, and I suspect that traction at some point is going to come into play as something that we're going to have to overcome. With this system here, our joystick would just be handheld, so it would be pretty much like a wired remote. Something also to point out is that the post is going to have to stay. If the situation was a little bit different, if this is something that I had bought in pieces off of Craigslist or something, I might not mind cutting and rewelding stuff on the cart itself. But since this one is fully intact, I'd kind of like to, I don't want to cut anything off of it just in case it ever needs to be return to its duties as a power chair. So I just want to, I want to leave my options open. Here's kind of what I'm thinking. I've got this little ramp here that's going to have to be a little ways off of the ground because there's a little bit of a swale in the middle of the taxiway that we're going to have to go across. So I don't want it digging in as it goes across. I don't know if it has to be that high or not, but it needs to be a little ways up off the ground. This represents my tail wheel. This is the actual dimension of my tail wheel. So if I get this edge below, this is an 8-inch tail wheel. If I make this lower than 4 inches, 3 1/4 is kind of what I've got my eye on. If I've got that lower than 3 1/4, when I come up behind it with my little cart here, it being below the midway point, it should force this down. Got an idea for these little anti-wheelie bars. Anyway, it's going to force this down, and then as it pushes, it'll just push itself up underneath the tail wheel, and then we'll have some sort of retention system to hold the tail wheel back here, and then we ought to be good to go. Oh yeah, so I said I've got an idea for these because they are intended to limit how far down this tips, and I need it to tip a little bit further down. Check this out. Back when it was time to get rid of my old rollerblades because I never used them anymore, I couldn't quite bring myself to get rid of the wheels. Check it out. Huh? If I put those wheels on there instead of these big wheels, that will allow me quite a bit more tip down, and it turns out they're the same, the bearings are the same bearings, the same size. So now they still function as anti-tip wheels, but they let it tip a lot further before they come into play. So now I can pretty much get my ramp, the end of my ramp, all the way on the ground. Now I just need to build an actual functional ramp. Yep, that ought to do it. Let's go test it. All right, so the way that this is going to work is going to require it to be chalked. Right, so I got my super duper handy dandy PVC chalks on both sides, because by its very nature it's going to be trying to push the airplane until it gets it up on the ramp, until it gets the tail wheel up on the ramp. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can get this thing positioned here. Whoa, it steers backwards in reverse. All right. Let's see if it'll push up onto there. Well, we definitely have a traction issue. And it's not making it pop a wheelie backwards. Let me give it a little help. Let me just start it down here. See what that does. Oh, there we go. Whoa. All right, so we're up on it. Now I need to retain it on there. Yeah, I got an idea. This is admittedly a pretty sorry idea at the moment, but it's what I'm going to do just for temporary, because remember, this is still just very much proof of concept. Let's see if this will even work. Now again, this is just proof of concept, so don't sue me. I know that this is pretty janky, but there we go. We've got it retained in there. We've got it up on top. Let's test it out a little bit. First off, I want to see how it pivots. I don't like how sloppy the wheel is in that channel right there. It seems like it has too much room to play around. Clearly this retention system, yes, that's not going to work. And oh yeah, the whole rolling down the wheel thing, yeah, hello dummy. It's got to have some rollers or something to slide on the tip of the ramp there. It can't just push down. So that didn't exactly go like I had hoped. Although I did see some things that could use improvement that will make it better next time. I think we can build the metal one.